On a weekend night, you walk into a high-end Japanese food store with exquisite decoration. Warm yellow light shines on the bar. The sushi chef holds a sharp willow blade knife in his hand, cutting off a piece of fish smoothly. The fish meat is an attractive orange-red color. The white fat lines are clearly distributed like marble lines. You pick it up and dip it in some hand-grind wasabi. Put it in your mouth, soft, glutinous and plump. The oil explodes on your tongue. At this moment you feel like you are eating a pure gift from the deep sea. A symbol of health and taste, right? Many people would even say that this is the flavor of Japanese craftsmanship. This is the traditional quintessence of Japan. If I tell you now, all the wonderful things you just imagined. In fact, it was a battle that lasted for 40 years. Elaborate business illusions. What would you think? The truth. It may make the chopsticks in your hand awkwardly stop in mid-air. It might even make you feel queasy. Today I'm going to tell you 3 game-changing facts about this fish. Shoot directly on the desktop. First, the so called quintessence of Japan is a complete lie. 40 years ago, the real Japanese would rather make salmon into dried salted fish and feed it to cats. I will never eat a bite of it raw. In their eyes, this thing is not only dirty but also full of parasites. Second, that alluring orange-red color you're obsessed with is not what it is. If you see the original flesh color of farmed salmon, it's as gray as paper. The red you see is the farmer looking at the color chart. It's dyed like choosing paint for decoration. Third, and the scariest thing, is that the piece of meat on your plate may not be. It's not the legendary deep-sea salmon. It's probably one. The ultimate freshwater redfish, a species that may carry deadly dry flukes of counterfeits. Today we are going to do a thorough autopsy. Let's unpack the global marketing conspiracy behind this fish, industrial diet, art and identity fraud mysteries. See how it gets excess capacity that no one wants. The transformation has deceived the taste buds of the world and emptied your wallet. Let's take the time back to 1980. If you time travel to the Tokyo resident market at that time, grab any sushi got. Let it make you a sushi with salmon. Trust me, you'll most likely be kicked out by an angry chef with a broom. And also comes with a baguette. Why? Because in traditional Japanese food culture, salmon, at the bottom of the contempt chain, Pacific salmon native to Japan due to the growing environment. There are many internal parasites, especially nematodes. In the Japanese people's knowledge for hundreds of years, this kind of fish can only be salt-roasted and stewed, or make it into the kind of dry and hard salted fish and eat it raw. In the eyes of the Japanese at the time, this was not just a joke about life. It's even more of an insult to the taste. Because the earthy smell can't be covered at all. On the sushi menu of that era, it's the world of tuna and bird fish. There is no place for salmon at all. If that's the case, how did the salmon sushi that's all over the streets come about? This is where we turn our attention to the other side of the earth, Northern Europe, Norway. Late 1970s, Norwegians illuminate the science and technology of deep-sea net farming. They've successfully bred Atlantic salmon, a fish that's richer in oil. And because it is artificially controlled, the risk of parasites is greatly reduced, but here comes the problem. Norwegians are so well raised that production is exploding. In 1980, Norway produced only a few thousand tons. In just a few years, it has soared to tens of thousands of tons. Norway's population is so small that it can't eat all the food. Cold people are almost stuffed to capacity. The Norwegian government is anxious. If so much fish cannot be sold, should it be thrown back into the sea? So they focused on Japan, the country that loves fish most in the world. In 1980-5, Norway launched a project Codenamed. Project Japan, Japan's top-secret marketing campaign. This is no ordinary sales pitch. This is a formatted operation targeting Japanese national perception. Norway sent an elite team headed by Trout. But this group of people got into trouble as soon as they arrived in Japan. Japanese importers shake their heads looking at Norwegian salmon. This thing looks like salmon and tastes like salmon, which is salmon that cannot be eaten raw. Facing this culture a iron wall, the Norwegians use 3 trump cards. The first step is to change your name and surname. Don't the Japanese hate cosmetic? The Norwegians said yes. Our name is not SCKE. Let's give him a fancy English name. Called Simon Salmon. Doesn't it sound like the kind of high-end goods from Europe and the United States? Pass. The name was changed. They successfully cut their own fish into Japanese native fish. The second trick is to bring goods to the royal family. To prove that this thing can be eaten raw, the Norwegians even invited their crown prince to Tokyo. Imagine an elegant European prince. Under the Meguiar lamp. Put a piece of raw salmon into your mouth in front of the entire Japanese media. Still showing an expression of enjoyment. The impact of this royal certification. More effective than 10,000 advertising slogans. The third move is to surround the city from the countryside. Since high-end food kiosks don't buy it, the Norwegians turn to those newly emerging companies that pursue cost-effectiveness. Conveyor belt sushi restaurant. They dumped salmon in large quantities to these civilian shops at extremely low prices. As a result, the younger generation in Japan were instantly enriched by this oil. Cheap for and fast food conquer. This battle has lasted 10 years. By 1990-5, when those Japanese who grew up eating salmon, when young people become the main consumers, salmon finally makes its way into high-end sushi restaurants. So just when you thought you were tasting an ancient Eastern tradition, in fact you are planning a perfect plan for the Norwegian government decades ago. Commercial public relations pay. Salmon sushi is essentially what Norwegians forced onto Japanese menus. The hard throw. If rewriting history is just a marketing ploy, then the next operation is a naked industrial facelift. Now please focus on the color of the piece of fish on your plate. Isn't that bright and plump orange-red color like the sunset particularly powerful? Whet your appetite. But if I turn off this beauty filter, restore its truest appearance, you may develop an appetite. Real farmed salmon without any intervention. The flesh color, after cutting, is off-white, as pale as a cooked chicken breast. Why is this happening? This is determined by biology. The reason why wild salmon are red is because they desperately hunt for shrimps in the sea. Crayfish contain a natural pigment called astaxanthin. This pigment is deposited in fish flesh, just like a flamingo turns red after eating shrimp. It is a biological negative phenomenon in nature. But what about farmed salmon? They are kept in crowded cages their entire lives. They eat artificially proportioned pellet feed. These feeds only contain soybean meal, fish meal and oil. There are no natural shrimps at all. So, they were originally gray fish. Imagine, if you saw a piece of off-white sashimi in the supermarket, would you buy it? You must think it has gone bad. In order to solve this problem, the breeding industry invented an amazing tool, salmon color chart. This thing looks exactly like the paint color card used by the decoration company. This is the most magical scene of industrialized farming. Color is no longer a gift from nature, but a product that can be customized. The supermarket purchasing manager will place an order for the breeding factory. I want rid number 20-7. This week's promotion is going to be good. High-end Japanese food stores may say that I want no 30 red, which looks more wild, of high-end goods. After receiving the order, the farmer will mix the feed like making a cocktail. Add the appropriate amount of colorant. What are these colorants? In most cases it is synthetic astaxanthin, many of which are derived from, extracted from petrochemical raw materials. Low cost, fast coloring, stable color as long as you feed it strictly according to the formula. Months. An originally gray fish can grow into exactly what the buyer wants. No. 20-7 read. There are even studies showing that in order to combat the stress caused by crowding and chefs fading due to stress, farmers sometimes have to increase dosage. Although this synthetic coloring is legally allowed to be added, there is no acute toxicity to the human body, but it feels like if you buy an apple that was originally white. The merchant spray-painted it red in order to sell better. You thought you were paying for the deliciousness of the fish. In fact, a large part of your money is paying for the dye in the feed. What you eat is not the color of nature, you eat the industrial standard color. If the previous dyeing just makes you spend a little more money, at most you should think about it. Then the next truth. I'm just kidding with your life. This is a special phenomenon that occurs in the Chinese market and is also the thrilling real and fake Monkey King. In 2018, a piece of CCTV news set off public opinion circles in the Chinese market. 1-third of the salmon called salmon comes from Longyang in Qinghai province, Gorge Reservoir. Even people who have not studied geography well know this. Where did the deep-sea salmon come from? After investigation, the truth emerged. Water, surface. These fish are not Atlantic turtles at all, but freshwater cultured red kingfish. Why do merchants dare to do this? It's because these two brothers look so much alike. Red turtles and Atlantic turtles, family red turtles, once skinned and sliced. The texture and color almost exactly the same, let alone ordinary consumers, even old people. It's hard to distinguish how do with the naked eye. Since they look similar, the taste is just right. Isn't it okay to mix and sell them? Absolutely not, because there is a gap between life and death between them. Parasites. Although marine fish also have parasites such as winged-pip nematodes, it is difficult for bugs to survive in the human body, and they usually die after a few days, but freshwater redfish may carry a kind of fear in their bodies. The terrifying creature, the hypertonic fluke, is commonly known as the dry fluke. This guy is real. Body killer. Once you eat the red Z, you end alive with insect eggs. They'll take up residence in your bile ducts. They can lie dormant for years or even decades. Multiply. Eat your liver full of holes. Even Indusko, Angijansua. Faced with such huge risks, guess what the Industry Association did at that time? Apologize and take down. They made a decision that would go down in the history of magical realism. A few months later, the association issued a group standard, directly modified the definition. It is stipulated that Hongzi-UN also belongs to salmon. This is like pointing at a native dog and saying, to sell it at a high price. From today on, we stipulate that it is also called a wolf, the kind that guides the horse. Operation directly legalizes food safety risks. Although the standard requires that specific fish species be labeled. But in actual restaurants and takeout software, there are several businesses that will. Let's be honest about Hongzhou, in Sashimi. They still have a salmon sign. Sell freshwater fish that cost only $12 a pound for hundreds of yuan. When you think you are enjoying the high-minded delicacies of the deep sea, you may playing a game of Russian roulette. Take this bite and you will swallow more than just the spices of mustard. There may also be hidden dangers of liver disease in the coming decades. After hearing this, I guess the expressions on many of my friends may be, I was so frightened that I even swore I would never eat sashimi again. Don't worry. Before I finish, I'm going to give you a real scientific one. Life protection amulet. Many people have a huge misunderstanding about eating fish. It is superstitious to sacrifice live fish. It feels like it was just fished out of the water and its tail is still jumping. Fish. It's the most delicious and safe to eat slice. Big mistake. This is actually giving parasites a good start. Japanese parasitology experts have long warned. When the fish is alive, the parasites usually stay in the internal organs. But once the fish dies, body temperature changes or internal organs begin to decay. Parasites, in order to survive, it will burrow crazily from the internal organs into the muscle tissue. So those restaurants that say freshly killed salmon on their sign, either the boss is ignorant or you're gambling with your health. True safety does not come from fresh, but from frozen. Parasites have a fatal weakness. They are afraid of cold. Both the SFDA and the EU Food Safety Authority have strict regulations. All fish intended for raw consumption must be flash frozen. The standard is usually freezing at -20 degrees for 7 days, or flash freeze at -30–5 degrees for 15 hours. Only after this severe hypothermic torture can a handful of worms be found in the fish, and insect eggs will be sentenced to death. So next time you go to the supermarket or Japanese food store, don't dislike the food from the freezer. Fish taken out. That thin layer of frost is actually given to you by the modern food industry. Bulletproof vest. Finally, let us take another look at the piece of meat on the plate. From Norway's deep sea nut fragrance to chemical color cards for feed mills. From marketing PR that rewrites history to confusing identity definitions. The piece of salmon on our plate is no longer the simple one. A gift from nature, it is a world dominated by modern industry and global trade. Biotechnology and consumer psychology create the perfect product. It's really delicious, rich in fat and nutritious, as long as you pass by. Regular freezing is also safe. I'm not trying to persuade you to stop eating because of choking and say goodbye to Japanese food. But at least when you pick up that tempting piece of orange-red fish next time, you should stay awake when dipping it in mustard and putting it in your mouth. You have to know that what you are chewing is not just a piece of fish, a complex setup, a modern business system full of calculations. And in this industrial age, sometimes seeing the truth clearly is better than tasting the delicious food, more worthy of our careful chewing. Okay, if you like my story, please click to subscribe and like. See you next time. Goodbye.